The reports coming out of Gaza are extremely dire right now. We know, based on Israeli military sources, that Israel has cut off all food, all water, and all electricity going into the Gaza Strip for more than a week now. And like I said, the reports are dire. We have Abdul Hadi Alijla, who reported that his 76-year-old mother from South Gaza has had no access to food or water for at least 4 days now, and she's been subsisting on mere morsels of bread and olive oil and cheese. We have Dr. Abu Salama, whose family is living in Gaza. She reported from already 9 days ago that they were suffering from a lack of food, and they were already rationing food, and they also did not have any water. A good friend of mine, Iman, has been communicating with me on a daily basis for the past few days, telling me that she is very lucky that she has access to salty water, because most of her friends do not even have access to that. But they're drinking contaminated water that is not fit for human consumption. And she's one of the lucky ones. Many people have no water at all. We have reports from Abby Martin, whose colleagues in Gaza have reported to her that they do not have enough water as well. You know, a UN official told Bell True that civilians in Gaza are reduced to drinking seawater because the clean water has run out. He says as well that body bags are running out, fuel for hospital generators, powering ventilators will run out in a few hours. That was what he reported 4 days ago. So I think at this point, it's very clear that the people of Gaza are facing an unfamiliar source of death. And that unfamiliar source is not a gun, it is not a Hellfire missile, but it is thirst from not having access to clean water, and it is hunger from not having access to food. So in addition to the food and water crisis, like you mentioned, the hospitals have run out materials needed to properly clean their medical supplies and to sanitize we already said that hospitals in Gaza do not have the cleaning supplies to sanitize hospital equipment. We said that they're using vinegar that they're buying from corner stores to treat bacterial wounds and infections. We also know that hospital staffers in Gaza are drinking water from IV bags. That was a report that came out from Eric Umansky. So in addition to the lack of food and the lack of water and the lack of medicine, we also know there's an electricity crisis, and there's a sewage crisis. And we know that even before the recent outbreak in violence that started on October 7th, 27% of diseases in the Gaza Strip were waterborne diseases. And that is because even before October 7th, the people of Gaza did not have enough electricity to filter the sewage. And so instead, right now, we know that sewage water is just being emptied into the streets and into the sea, which is likely to exacerbate the health problems that Gazans will experience in the coming weeks and months. So yeah, it's a humanitarian catastrophe of unprecedented proportions. We could call it a second Nakba, because if we just look at the numbers, the number of displaced Palestinians in the Gaza Strip already has exceeded the number of Palestinians who were displaced in 1948. The number of Palestinians massacred by Israel is already 3 to 4 times greater than the number of Palestinians who were massacred in 1948. In 1948, Zionist forces expelled something like 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, and they massacred something like 800 Palestinians. Those are numbers I'm citing from Benny Morris, one of the most renowned historians on the 1948 war. Now, what has happened in the past 2 weeks in Gaza has led to even more displacement and even more ethnic cleansing than 48. In just the past 2 weeks, the UN has reported that 1 million Palestinians have been displaced by this war. They've been displaced by the bombing. They've been told to leave by Israel. Israel has ordered 1 million Palestinians who live in the north of Gaza to evacuate their homes and flee south. That's already 25% more people than during the first Nakba. And then as far as the death counts go, the current death count in Gaza, I believe, is over 3,000 at this point, which is, what's that, 5 times as many dead Palestinians in just the past 2 weeks as compared to a war that lasted more than a calendar year in 1948. Remember, the fighting in 1948 started in November 1947 and lasted all the way through December 1949. So over the course of, over a calendar year, so we're talking 13, 14 months, there were 750,000 Palestinians displaced. Now we're talking about over 1 million Palestinians displaced in the course of 2 weeks. Catastrophe of even greater proportions, both in terms of the number of ethnically cleansed Palestinians as well as in terms of the death tolls. I think there's a reason that Israel has been hesitant to enter the Gaza Strip. As far as I know, there are no Israeli ground troops in the Gaza Strip, even though Israel has been talking about and preparing and planning a ground invasion for over a week now. Why haven't they gone in? What are they waiting for? Actually, it is quite curious and interesting. It begs the question, what are they waiting for? I would probably agree with the assessment of Norman Finkelstein, who over the past number of days has taken a number of interviews and suggested that Israeli military forces are scared out of their minds of entering Gaza with ground troops. They know Hamas has built a network of tunnels. They know that Hamas has been waiting for this moment for years. They've been preparing for this moment for years. I'm sure there's IEDs they can destroy Israeli tanks with. We know that they're well used to, this is their home turf, right? The last point I would make with regard to a ground invasion was that, in 2006, Israel invaded Lebanon. And I think Israel was shocked at that invasion of Lebanon, at just how strong and how formidable Hezbollah was. And it's been, 17 years since that ground invasion? Israel knows that Hezbollah is a force to be reckoned with. And I think they're actually quite worried that Hezbollah would potentially pursue a more extensive attack on Israel, not just an air attack, but potentially even a land and a ground invasion, if Israel decides to continue pummeling Gaza with bombs and potentially pursues a ground invasion. So I think because of the potential for this war to spiral out of control and lead to a 2 or potentially even a 3-front war, I think Israel is quite worried. I think, by the way, we are also seeing mass protests around the Arab world, in Egypt and in the UAE, in a country that was probably the closest ally to Israel in the Arab world. The UAE has now come out and said the bombing needs to end immediately, and there needs to be an immediate ceasefire. So Israel, whatever bridges Israel has built with the Arab world in the Abraham Accords, and now this potential deal with Saudi Arabia, it has evaporated over the past 2 weeks. And so I think Israel is also concerned that it's losing its partners in the Arab world, that it's enraging the Arab street. And when the Arab street is enraged, as it is in Egypt and Lebanon and Syria and the Gulf and Morocco and Tunisia, I think when the Arab street is enraged, bad news for Israel on the diplomatic front, politically, and potentially also on the military front, as Arab countries come to the aid of the Palestinians and, potentially even back a Hezbollah or back another militant group to actually attack Israel. So I think for all those reasons, I would not be surprised if there is no eventual Israeli ground invasion.